Merrimito. Okay, so this is a little bit of a impromptu post, which I honestly I wanted to upload. I think, was it last Friday or the Friday before? At least a couple of weeks ago, and it was followed after a vision I had. And I think I'm going to do this post in two parts. So in one part, I'm going to talk about my vision. In the second part, I'll talk about that in a more pragmatic way. In the second part, I've drawn two cards as clarifiers for my vision. Now, so this is content I usually put just straight on I've got two YouTube channels, and I have Odyssey as well. And I've tried to make one channel just purely just more pragmatic things around the Duat, is called the Duat, the Enchanted Duat. And then there's the Weird Crafter site, or Weird Crafter YouTube channel, which is more cards and things like that. So when I do the clarifiers, I will upload that on the Weird Craft site, but I will talk about my vision I had. So I need to do an intro for the Weird Crafter site. So I have been seeing visions, things before they happen, all that sort of stuff since I was a little girl. In my ancestry on this site that people probably don't know, I have, I did mention a little bit of it in the intro. My paternal side were, Vikings or Norwegian fishermen that settled Normandy, and are the line of the Wicks or the Wiccas, not modern Wicca. I don't do modern Wicca. And my maternal were the castle adders or snakes, the Gaels that settled Iberia, which is now called Spain. And then from Iberia is where the Gaelic people came from, and then settled places such as Scotia or Scotland and Ireland and so forth, i.e. Tara. So all Gaelic people descend from the Norsemen, from the ice. There should be no root distinction. I just heard, when you hear something like a delivery and they do that beepy sort of sound? I probably should just go check. Anyway, I really want to get into my vision, but I just don't want to move and lose my train of thought. But anyway, I'll go on to the vision. So for me, there is only nature and anti-nature. There is no such thing as evil or good. Often what people deem as evil is anti-nature. It is not natural to not protect your child. It is not natural to have no boundaries or boundaries of definition, because without such thing, nothing actually exists and nothing means anything and nothing matters. It's just nothing, which is paradoxal to nature, which is everything. It's creative. You can't have a creative force if there's no boundaries or foundations to build upon, without just putting the basics of it without getting too much into it. It is not natural for a man not to defend his land on his land and his family. It is not natural. It is not natural to exploit the weaker aspects of your community in order to make gains, because you further weaken those aspects and you make society eventually unpalatable or community unsafe. Just all these little things that once upon a time used to be common sense. It's nothing born out of a religion. Religion has overall removed people from their common sense basis and made them heretical and heretical in whatever tangents of thoughts they're going into, with no basic centering compass, and based on a belief which often is unproven. Anyway, I don't want to go too far into that either. I just want to keep this about the vision. Dang it. I guess I'm just trying to really emphasize the importance of nature. Now, my apothecary, I'm still finishing it. It's been moved over from the other room, so bear the mess. I guess what I'm getting at, for me, my Gaelic ancestry, our new year starts at the beginning of winter, or Samhain. So this is very far from New Year's for me, really. For me, New Year's was back in May, when we have our winter's Samhain here in the Southern Hemisphere, and during the 21st is when we have our midwinter solstice in the Southern Hemisphere. So, and then you've also got the whole year, how years are measured are based on the supposed birth of someone in the Middle East who I don't even acknowledge. Is not of my ethnos. So I go by my Druidic and Gaelic year, which is a lot older, which I'm not going to really go too much into, because I think partly because there's just too many people who want to play Druid cosplay or witch cosplay, and it's as deep as the superficial layers they wear and display, but when it comes down to it, they will not fall on the core of it all and the sword, because it's all about the likes, the follows, the clicks. It's not, you know what I mean? So for that reason, but also it's another topic. So anyway, but because so many people are falling within the intention of their energy and focus into this being a new year, there is a spiritual or a magical energy that's created from that. When you have mass attention or focus on any one thing, it does create a charge. So because we're having this, in quote, new year charge coming, I think this vision is quite poignant. 2023 on the normie sphere outside of my old roots is going to be the wedge, probably the final wedge between those who are nature and anti-nature. And it doesn't matter what your race is, where you come from, there is a divide. And every single race, every single culture has this. Those who align themselves with the natural world and those who do not. I just will say one thing for those who do or think they do. Be very careful that if you are in religion or follow any religious cult. I don't do religion. I'm a Wick of the old ways and Druid of the old ways, because that is my race. I didn't get to choose that. And I'm a wise person, which is what those titles are, because I've also chosen to commit my life to the study and practice of above everything and everyone else. Even if I'm alone, I don't care. That is what my last life, what I'm going to finish and die as doing. So be very careful, because the cults that are allowed out there may seem really nice and hyperbole, but at their root they are anti-nature. At their root they weaken you. At their root they will have you bending and bowing to something. That is a natural state, not a natural state of being. There's a big difference between giving something an embracing hug and loving something, or bowing to it, because if you don't worship it in fear, you're going to go somewhere in the afterlife which you can't even prove. That is unfavorable. That's not a loving cult even. And I'd be just as weary as these loving cults, if you're going to coin those. But be very careful, because they are anti-nature. Anything that takes you away from the natural world of being and wanting to be self-efficient in any way you can, to knowing the seasons, working with the seasons, living in tune with the natural environment and the animals around you with respect. You shouldn't be respecting everybody. People should earn that respect. It's not something given freely. The only time respect is given freely is to nature. She is the only thing you should be respecting, because within that respect will be boundaries in which you have to govern yourself so you survive as well. But, you know, animals generally don't come out to hunt and kill you. That's what humans do. You know, for whatever bullshit of lies they believe, again, usually stems from religion and an arrogance that humans think they are superior to the natural world. And often, again, that comes from religious brainwashing. And if you have suffered from that, it will take time to undo or to remove the false programming that you've been brainwashed into. If you do not do that, you will not survive the natural world. You won't. And the thing is, even if you survive the natural world per se, you will never have the spiritual fullness that every single human being should be experiencing and achieving in this mid-realm, in this time, in this mid-realm. But alas, I digress. What a massive intro. I'm sorry I've sort of gone off into many tangents, because there's so many tangents in this. So I would just say that caveat, you know, I need to do a serious vlog on prepping, carbohydrates, and being a vegan, because there is so much misinformation put out there by so-called preppers while they chug a bottle of wine or something in the middle of their broadcast, or they look like meat golems and they literally just live on meat, and their faces are puffy and pale, and it's disgusting. They look like walking death. Oh, but we feel great. Yeah, you look like shit. I'm sorry. I'm in my 50s. I do not look like that. I've been vegan since end of 2012. And, you know, I'll do a separate recording on that, because there is so much false information given out there. I am a qualified dietitian. I worked as a personal trainer and a dietitian that conditioned athletes, including myself, for over 25 years. I think I know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the downside of social media is people can say anything and there's little recourse, but in a way I don't want there to be legal recourse, because then that will be used against things that certain regimes don't like people being empowered to know. You know what I mean? So you kind of need to hope and rely that some people can just pull things apart a little bit. So I am planning on doing that recording at some point. The importance of carbohydrates is just, if you think society is getting smarter, I'm just laughing. I don't think it is. And a big part of that is a lot of the demonization of carbohydrates. And yeah, I'll do another post on that. It's very important in prepping, because fuel source and calories are extremely critical. And I'm not having a go at people who aren't vegan. So just knock that out. On a personal level, I'm not going to trust you as much as someone who is a vegan and not some cultural Marxist, because unfortunately there's a lot of vegans in movements out there who are vegan just because they want to create discord. They're not actually just vegan. They have other intentions and other agendas, and they're using that vegan label to give any validation to the other shit they're causing, which is this trouble in society. I'm not an anarchist. but I don't like tyrannical government either. You don't have to choose one or the other of those things. You can, so anyway, that's another topic. So there's a lot of can of worms, and I haven't even got to the vision yet. Shit. Anyway, 2023 in the normie sense is going to be the year of major divide. We've already had division, but it's going to be extremely obvious now. And this vision happened in the morning, and the day that followed almost just rubbed it in. It just fully highlighted what this vision brought about. So let's get to it. I'm probably going to put at the beginning of this intro, I'm going to put a timestamp so you can go straight to the vision, and then you can go back and listen to me waffle if you like. Sorry. This is how my brain works. I go off in a zillion directions at one time sometimes. Sometimes I'll have 3 diverting thoughts exactly at the same time. I'm not kidding you. That's just how my mind, my soul works. All right, so my vision was, it was almost like dinner time at night, going into night, I should say. So after dinner time, late dinner, and it was a balmy afternoon, and I seemed to be on a shoreline of where there was a fair, Ferris wheels, lots of people walking in and out and about, and I was walking along a path, a darkened path, highlighted by all the lights above and around it. This path was going around a bend onto what seemed a turret, which is like a castle, sort of lighthouse, sort of duacky, and then it was going up around it. Now, I couldn't see beyond a metre above me. All I could do was follow this path. To the left was this tower that this sloping concreted stairwell was ascending. And it was so slight, the ascent, that it looked like it was almost a straight path you're walking off, but it wasn't. There was no need to actually put stairs. It was just a smooth path ascending up. And then to the right was the ocean that looked like black ink or midnight. And there was a beautiful velvety, cool tone to it, and it was completely unknown. Looking out into the ocean over my right, onto my right side or beyond the straightened path that I was ascending on this tower, if you like, it just looked like looking into the abyss. And it almost strikes a chord of fear of the unknown in the abyss. And as I was going up and up, eventually I got to the top. And I must make a note that for some reason I was in America. I'm living in Australia, in Victoria, Australia. But for some reason I was in America. And it was an American coastal state, I don't know where, and it was a balmy afternoon too. So we are in midsummer here in the southern hemisphere. When we go into midwinter is when the northern hemisphere goes into the midsummer. So it might be a timestamp of midsummer, June the 21st, 2023 in the States or northern hemisphere, which might be an important note. So I was ascending up, and I could hear slightly in the background a musical note. Like a sea creature was singing, a woman sea creature. Melusine is actually in my maternal line's folklore, hereditary folklore, and this is where you get the dragons coming from. And this is where the actual original folklore of the mermaid or French maiden, which transliterates as French maiden of the sea, comes from, was Melusine. So she's in there And I even look like the historical depictions with the ginger hair and everything. But anyway, I digress. That's what it felt like. It is a beautiful calling sound. And for some reason, I thought it was coming from the top of this tower or this turret going up. And I got to the top. To my amazement, it was an electronic glass double door, and it opened. And it was literally walking into the top of a Disney-like business, where there was a Asian lady at the counter. It was like if I was to go to an Asian country that was trying to mimic a Disneyland, that's what it was like. But it was like the Americanized version had been taken over by an Asian group. And the English wasn't really there. It was hard to speak to the lady, and everything was like you had to put something in to operate or access. So I got through the first glass doors, but then I couldn't get beyond the lady. Basically, I had no digital access, and basically access was denied. And my first thought was, where can I go now? I have followed the path. I've gone to the furthest point and there's no access. I can't get back down. What do you do? So I had no option than to go back out the glass double doors I came from and ponder, what do I do now? Now, as soon as I walked out of the glass double doors that are automatic, the view is different, isn't it? Because you're walking out compared to walking in. When I walked out, I could see that on the other side of this black or navy midnight blue abyss of ocean waves that were lapping, there was a faint glimmer of another shoreline. But in between that shoreline and me, I realized that the black abyss or the velvety ocean was actually lapping all the way up. For some reason, the water was lapping against the path, which was flattened but wasn't crashing into it. It was almost like level. It was very weird. Anyway, and then I just looked for a second. Hang on, there's other routes, but then to hit things homes. Well, we have many homes sometimes, don't we? There were these beautiful dolphins that were just jumping out of the water and jumping back in. Dolphins are very special for me. Like, I used to ride horses, and then as a child, and there was one stretch of beach at Lockley's Riding Club, which opened out in Henley's Beach in South Australia, and there were families of dolphins there, and we'd take the horses out beyond the jetty, and we'd swim the dolphins on horseback. And but they're very special to me, dolphins, and I think a lot of people across many different cultures have a special bond with dolphins. To destroy and hurt these creatures is just the sign of someone I do not want to be near. Like, there's just something extra, Anyway, so these beautiful dolphins were jumping out, and then as I fine-tuned my hearing, I could hear that beautiful lyrical voice and music was actually coming from the water. And then the dolphins were joining in with their sounds. And then I could also hear all the other creatures I just could not hear before when I was ascending up to the steps of this place. I didn't know where I was going, but it seemed to be the only place I could go. And I just realized that what was in those glass double doors was this manufactured, controlled, gel-like structure. And then when I couldn't go any further with it, what awaited me was the natural world. And in its magical form as well, not just in the pragmatic physical form. So I guess my take home from my vision for those who hear now, am I going to sneeze? No. Hang on. No, I'm not. Is that keep going. If you're naturally inclined, keep going. You're going to hit points where you feel like you have no way out. You're going to be locked out of society, whatever they're calling society, which I don't call society, I call it a jail and dystopia. At your lowest ebb, where you think there's nowhere to go, maybe you have to lose everything to find everything, which is nature and the natural world, in its truest sense. Now, when I came out of this vision, this is just something I just see that flashes in my eyes, like a story being unfolded in the middle of the air. I shit you not, that day, every single thing was locking me out on the web of things. My bank account decided something that I have been buying for a year now from the same store was suspicious activity and blocked my card. I was on the phone for 3 hours trying to get through to the right person to unblock my card and tell them to cut the shit out. It was like that all day. It was so bad. I actually didn't get to eat my breakfast until 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I was stuck on the phone all day being bounced around because all these electronic internet of things was getting blocked and fucked up. I couldn't even access my own money. And I'm like, oh, fuck. It gave me an eye-opener too on just how much shit I've got to do to pull myself together. So for this normie new year, have a good realistic look at where you're at and really try and get yourself sorted to be self-reliant where you can, to need less money. But the most important thing, always be guided by nature, the natural world, the animals that are in it, the rocks, the oceans, the soils. They're going to call us, I don't want to say the word because I don't want to trigger anything, errorist, starts with a T, just to want to be natural human beings living naturally, which I just, which is horseshit, but that's all I can say. Now I've done a couple of clarifying tarot cards. I'm going to add a link to this vlog, which will take you to my other YouTube channel, which I hope will give some more insight. But also my time is running on this probably harshly because I waffled on for so long. Keep safe from the nonsense and keep sane from the nonsense, and all the naturally inclined beings out there, I wish you good stead, and I will post as much as I can to help you, which is, things I'm doing, I guess. Blessed be, Mary Part. Have a nice 2023 normie New Year. But don't lose your eye on the prize, which is the natural world and being a natural human being. Blessed be, Mary Part.